Hi there, it's me. Yeah. Video. Hopefully, I'll manage to keep this going. I've got a bit of an upset tum. Hopefully, it's settled down a bit. I started live just a few minutes ago and I had to dash off. But if that happens, it happens. I thought I'd just do this impromptu. So if you're here, hello and welcome. I'll try and remember to welcome people if they pop in as this goes on. I thought I'd show you some of my latest stuff. I haven't done very much in the past week or so. Hello to somebody who's here, I think, unless that's just me, and talk about what I've been up to because it's been an unusual week or so for me. And then, fingers crossed, my tummy will keep itself nice and calm, and I'll do some sketchbook kinds of drawing and using watercolors, and I'll talk about different kinds of paper and things like that. I had a request. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. I forgot to note it down from somebody about what kind of paper would be the best for different kinds of media. Or I'll talk through what paper I use and why I use it. So this week, or in the last week, I decided that I was fed up of drawing on plain coloured paper. I wasn't too sure about adding colour with watercolour and or anything else. And I thought, I just want some coloured paper to draw on. So what I've got here is just mixed media paper, which is one of my favourites. This is by C. White of Brighton. I think they call it all media paper. It's it's good enough for a sketchbook for all kinds of media. That's why it's called all media paper. It won't hold up to lots and lots of layers of watercolor or a lot of water. It does cause it to warp, but it works fine. And it's smooth enough to draw on with a pen nicely, but it's got enough tuff that you get a little bit of texture with things like coloured pencils and other things. I didn't colour this with watercolour though. I used distress inks and just a piece of cut and dry foam, sort of like it's kind of like a thick version of fun foam, but with a foamy back, more foamy backing to it. And it puts distress ink, which you dab on the ink pad, and on the paper, you can see the shape of the rectangle or square of foam I used. But I'm not worried about that because when I draw on top of it, it will disappear. So this is just something I did with favorite kinds of ways my pen likes to move or my hand likes to move, and just seeing what comes of it. And yes, eyes have appeared again, and there's swirls and fans and feathery shapes and circles, and there's even some seed pods and things, just things that I like. Here, I some reason I decided to draw a border, and I know this is a Zentangle fragment, but you see this pattern in other things as well. And I just like it. I like the way that we've got eyes looking in, almost like owls, if you look at the points, owls peeking through. And I started adding lines where there's different colours and shapes in the background to see what comes of that. I'm not going to fill it all in with that because there'll be areas where there are none or very few, and that's fine. But that's still a work in progress. And I've got two here, as I thought I'd rather like to do something small. And I think it was last weekend when I wasn't feeling too tickety-boo. And so I just separated my page into four, which is nice to do. This was the first one that I did, and it's on um, again, it's a distress ink background. Softer colours, not as vibrant, but I like these. There's a soft green and a sort of like rusty brown there. Just enough just to give a hint of colour. It looks almost like old paper now. And I drew this on. I've left big open spaces so that the background can show through or I can do something with it. And I wanted to add shading, and I've added some graphite down here. And I thought, I'm know me, I am not a fan of graphite for shading. I always think it makes it look dirty and grimy, yet I like sort of distressed, grungy backgrounds, but there's a kind of grunge that I like. So I used a Pitt Artist pen as sort of like a not the lightest grey, but the next lightest to add some, and I'm really not sure about it. Um, but looking at it now, at the time I wasn't really sure about it. Now, looking at it from a distance, I'm going to turn a lamp on and turn it round because the sun is not reliable today. Excuse the clicks and bangs and the wobbliness of my table as I turn it around. That might help, hopefully. And but this was fun to draw. I regret adding so much detail to this face and a little bit to that one, but hey ho, it's all learning, and sometimes I'm drawing just for the sake of drawing, for the enjoyment of it. But you can see that certain shapes or motifs have been repeated throughout. So this kind of shape of seed heads appears elsewhere, but with different kinds of patterns. It's my way of exploring and, looking at things and working through them. I haven't brought the sketchbook upstairs. Don't think so. No, I didn't. I did spend some time this week looking at seed pods, sketching them and drawing them because it's just something I love to do. But I've got leaves here with little berries or little dots on, dots rearranged in groups of 3. Instead of having them in the little gaps here, I've put groups of 3 at the tip. I've got different ones around here. I've got this kind of shape holding those beads as well, and different kinds of leaves that I was looking at medieval manuscripts, so I was borrowing from them. And this is where I thought, what am I doing? It's sort of like this just appeared. And I thought, okay, then let's see what I can do now to move on from that. And this is what I've decided to do. And yes, I've left quite a big space up here, but I quite like that. This is what I was drawing a couple of days ago, inked in, or, used a very fine black micron pen. I used a 0.1, and I started adding watercolor or Inktense pencils. That's watercolor pencils, Inktense pencils, and some of this is Inktense, but I've started using some watercolors as well, just to bring the drawings to life. This is an exercise from Danielle Donaldson from her book. It's either Creative Girl or Imaginative Watercolor, about taking an idea of something. So these are all elements that could be part of buildings or used to decorate around buildings, and just fill a page with ideas up and add colour and see what they go to. She uses a lot smaller piece of paper than I did. I mean, this is 12 by, I think it's 8. This is Canson mixed media paper. Oh, it's this one, Visual Journal Mixed Media. It's 100% cotton, so it's could be good for watercolor. And watercolor works okay on it, but it doesn't really sink into the paper like it does on proper watercolor paper, because this is made for mixed media. It's got a smoothish surface. The fine pen tends to skip over it, but a thicker pen will work fine. And it is for mixed media, so using all kinds of things. It is quite expensive. It's a lot more expensive than the all media paper from Sea White. I think that sketchbook was, I think it was about either £16 or £20 for how many pages are in there? How many sheets? 34 sheets. Whereas the Sea White of Brighton, I think you get 60 sheets or perhaps more in the pack, and in the sketchbook, it's A4 size and it's about £10, I think. And so I sort of like bought this because I haven't used it before. I didn't realize it was 100% cotton until now. It's quite thin. It will warp with water, but it works nicely. It's nicely enough with watercolor, but I don't think you're going to be able to do the watercolor techniques that you can do on watercolor paper. So this is fun to do. If you don't know what to draw, you just pick something and you just do little sketches and go back and add colour or pattern to them. I'm adding colour, then I'm going to go back and add pattern. And it's a big sheet of paper, which isn't really good for me doing drawing on. And then what I've done, started doing this, not sure if this was yet, yeah, I think it was yesterday morning, very early. And you may not see it clearly on here, but it's almost it is the middle of September. And the mornings are quite chilly and the evenings are. And we've got warm enough, balmy days at the moment here in the valleys of South Wales. An Indian summer almost. And it's just got that feeling of autumn. And when autumn comes around, my mind goes to things of a things of a Halloweeny nature because I like Halloween. I like creepy cutes and everything's cute. So I thought I'd just fill a sketchbook page in here with ideas and see what I can develop of them. This is Rhodia dot pad. You can get Rhodia paper, Clairefontaine Sketch It pads. It's the same company, but they tend to have a greyer surface and a slightly rougher surface to the paper. I prefer the Sketch It books, but I couldn't find any, so I went for the Rhodia. I think if there was an offer on them. Either way, they work nicely, but they are for writing on. They're designed more for writing on and sketching on and doing things roughly than any finished work. The dot grid is great because it helps for you to set things out in an orderly fashion and to keep things on a level rather than with me, it goes all over the place, especially if I'm working on my lap and the book's at a funny angle. So that's what I've been up to. I haven't been around much online, if at all, really, for the past few days. And I'll tell you about that before I do any drawing. I'll just get some bits and bobs out. I My older sister is visiting, and so for the last 3, 4 days, we've been out and about together. Sometimes for part of the day, we've both been getting home shattered, and it's been lovely. Today, she's got other parts of her family, um, sort of like my yeah, it's got my family's really complicated. She's my half sister, so she's got some elements of her family visiting today, and she's I had to text yesterday, it said Sunday. If I'd known, I would have started doing this earlier if it was today, but neither here nor there. It is what it is. So I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. It's all a bit bonkers around here, but it's lovely. And I am tired. Yesterday was a lovely long day, and it was lovely. And I got to bed just after midnight, and I didn't wake up until gone 11 o'clock this morning. And I think this is also why my stomach's upset because I've been out and about and around people and Roman sites. And we went to Southern Down or Dunraven Bay on the South Wales coast. The tide was in, but it was lovely just to stand and listen to the waves and reminisce about trips in my childhood. She would have been late teen and swimming and all the funny things that happened there. And just went to an old church and that dates back to just after the Norman conquest and has got the little village it's in has links to smugglers and things like that. So it's all quite interesting. And just had a lovely time just driving around, looking at the world, finding nice places to have something to eat and drink, and you know. And yesterday was the day for Roman stuff as well, and so we went to a Roman fortress town, a legionary town called Caerleon, and visited the Roman baths there that have been discovered. And um, they're now enclosed in a building that will keep them. We went to the museum afterwards, and we were a bit too late to go and have a walk around the amphitheatre, and because they were closing the gates at 5, because we'd been to Southern Down and had lunch and wandered round to get there. We went, in a very roundabout, random way, back and forth. But I I don't forget, but I'm always reminded when I go to the Legionary Museum of how beautiful the patterns used in Roman metalwork on fitments for uniforms, their pottery vessels, their glass vessels and objects and beads and jewelry and other things, how beautiful they are and how much inspiration there is and how modern so many of the patterns and so on seem because they carry on through time. And it's just going, that is so nice. Hi, Christine. Lovely to have you here. It is a surprise. It's very impromptu. I didn't think I'd be around today to do this. And I'm hoping that my stomach will hold out for this. But we shall see. But to go back to Roman stuff, that's something I want to look at and want to make use of. And ideas for shapes of bottles and vessels and things, because I have a love for those as well. Because seed pods are really vessels of one kind, aren't they? and nature inspires so much. And again, that was something very much that being reminded of in my day's travels and visits and round and abouts, and a reminder that I really do need to get my backside out the house a bit more often than I have done for quite a number of years. But hopefully, this will be a kickstart to get me doing that. So, what I thought I'd do today is to have a little look at, on one of these pieces of paper, maybe both of them, drawing some things. And I think what I might do is I think I may, if it's all right with you, find a ruler. Where did I put my ruler? I have my ruler here, I'm sure. I'm flapping around here and I can't see it for love of money. Who knows what I've done with it? Typical. Doesn't matter, I've got another one. Is I think we might draw some things associated with autumn and Halloween and things like that because we're heading to it. Being able to see rowan trees, oh, mountain ash trees, absolutely full of their beautiful red berries. The leaves are still green. The leaves are beginning, some leaves are beginning to turn colour, beginning to show yellows and other colours. But it's just so lovely. So I've just put some pencil guidelines in here to give me just some guides to help me keep things straight. It may be that I draw bigger than these guidelines, smaller. I'm going to ink in what I draw, I think, so that we can see it now then. Next thing, there it is. Ah, there we go. I can zoom in. It's decided to wake up and work. There we go. I think pumpkins are something that appeals to so many people, not just for Halloween, but for um, harvest. In America, there's Thanksgiving, and so many other things. You know, it's iconic of. Oh, it's become iconic of autumn, even though we're not strictly in autumn. Meteorological autumn, yes, because that begins the beginning of September. Astronomical autumn is around the autumn equinox. Well, it is the autumn equinox, which is around the 21st of September. So what I'm going to do here, how to draw a pumpkin, I'm going to start with a circle. And we're going to use that as the guide. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I think it's much nicer if it's not perfect. Let me just get the autofocus going and hope that it's not going to wobble in and out. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to use that just as a guide, and I think I'm going to use the O1 pen. Then what I'm going to start with in the middle is a kind of oval shape, starting in the middle at the top, and you can make this as thin or as wide as you like. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical because pumpkins really aren't. And then to make this look that it's got some 3D, I'm going to look for where the pencil line touches this pen line, and I'm going to just go a little bit below it. I'm going to go upwards, out, down. I'll have this one touch the bottom so it's got a nice bottom to sit on. That starts to give us more of a rounded shape. I'm going to do the same kind of thing on the other side. I always work this way, but I'm really not trying to make them identical. You can see this one has started a little bit lower than that one. It's fine. And then these ones here aren't really going to touch the bottom. They're going to be like this. And the bottom bits should really curve back upwards, but we're okay where they are. Now, the other thing about these is that there's always those little bits that stick out. But before I have the bits that stick up the top, stick out at the top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little shape, sort of like they're almost like little S shapes with a gap between them. And then that's where I can put the stem of the pumpkin in. And I'm just going to add a couple of lines in there just to give it some texture. And then round here, I'm just going to add some lumpy bumps. just to enclose that in the pumpkin. Doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, mine looks rather bizarre, even to my eyes. Gone a bit wrong there. Matters not. Sketchbook page. This is where you get to do things again if you don't like what you've done. So let's try again. So this time, I've decided based on this, I'm going to make the bottom flatter, wider and flatter, and the top a little bit more narrow. And again, I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to give myself a nice flat bottom. This side, I'm going to go like this, up and down to my surface, up and down. This one will go, it will sort of like not be straight like this, but it will kind of pop down a little bit. And then I'm going to use, instead of trying to draw this just over the top of those, I'm going to draw it from the two side ones and just leave it like that. And I've put a little kind of oval at the top, a pointy oval, a seed shape, if you will. Then I've now got, that's a better pumpkin. And I could add, they sometimes have these curly Q things on, don't they? These stems of stuff that curl. So I've drawn one in pencil and I'm going to go on either side to create this. So if I go down again, I'm going to go down here, around that bit, around here, and perhaps if I can zoom in. No, I can't go in anymore without moving the camera. I'll do it bigger on another piece of paper. Go down to there. This one's the inside one, so we can do that little loop there, around like so. And then that one, I'm just going to have it kicking out with a point on the end. And sometimes you have leaves coming off them, or a leaf here. So I'm just going to do a simple kind of leaf, just peeking out from behind that stem. Perhaps just a cheeky nether one. Perhaps here, just sticking out like that will do. I've put an extra line in there, but nobody will really notice, to be honest. If you wanted to put a face in that, I'd put it in before you draw the lines in. I'm not doing faced pumpkins today. You don't get pumpkins that are always nice and, almost circular. Sometimes they have a very funny kind of tall and thin shape, don't they? A bit like this. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to put some, in pencil, I'm going to separate this into 3 sections, and I'm going to use my pencil this time just to shape those segments. And I almost feel like I could have one just peeking out a little bit under there. Just it with my pencil. So let's just pop these in. If you have watercolor paper that is too rough to draw on the side that is the so-called right side, turn it over and use the back, because often the back is much smoother than the front if you've got textured on cold pressed watercolor paper. Hot pressed watercolor paper is quite smooth, but it can be off-white if it's cotton. You can get botanical watercolor paper, which is very smooth, because botanical illustrations are done with great detail on very smooth, very white paper, so that the colours of the watercolours, the colours of the flowers show as true as possible. Cartridge paper generally is not a good idea for watercolour. It's great for coloured pencils. You can use some watercolour on it, but you can't use washes. It has to be just damp. You can't use alcohol markers and other markers because they bleed on it generally. marker paper is the best for markers, but the all media paper works quite nicely to a degree. This is supposed to be all right for markers, but I haven't tried it because I know that the paper would have a tendency for it to soak up and bleed, so I wouldn't use marker pens on this. Um, Canson Imagine is actually really nice for markers, and it also works nicely for watercolors and for colored pencils and for most other kinds of media. Canson Imagine is another mixed media paper, and it has got a smoothish surface. It's smoother than this. I think I'm working on the back of this because the pen isn't skipping here. Um, but it works, it still works quite, it's working quite nicely. And I'm going to have a short one that's a very stout and cuddly pumpkin, I think. And again, I think I'm going to draw in my guidelines with pencil because that means I can adjust them to get them just as I would like them to be. And I think that works quite nicely there. So my first one is in the middle. When you're looking at something and you want to draw it, just think of its basic shape, the most basic shape that it would fit. Don't worry about all the little lumps and bumps or anything else. Just think about its basic shape and start there with that. So this one was a short, very rounded oval kind of shape. But I've drawn it using the same principles as this, but not that one because of the strange lumpy bumps. For this stem, I'm just curving at the bottom and taking it pretty straight. I'm going to flare it a little bit at the top so I can add a nice stem there. And I will add some lines in there to give it texture. The watercolor will show over it. If you're using colored pencils, you can choose whatever you would like. Here, you see if you can see, I'm going to draw just a curly line. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw along the pencil line, and I'm going to draw a little loop inside that big loop. I'm then going to go around that small loop on the outside of it and create a stem. Then I'm going to follow that line behind here, go down to give it the end. And I am going to give myself a nice leaf shape. And here I'm going to draw 5 or 4 lines on like an X shape, but the bottom 2 lines are smaller than the middle, which is smaller than this, so that I can give myself something like a maple leaf shape. Talking of leaves, why don't we do some leaves? Because leaves are always there in the autumn. So I'm going to start with the stem and I am going to draw it as thick as I'd like it at the bottom. Simplest leaf shape. I always like to put a point at the end. We can do a variation on that. Is instead of having it oval, let's start a little bit way up against its central vein and draw a heart shape. That's a nice wide one. Take that again, and instead of drawing it quite broad, we can draw it quite a narrow leaf. We can draw that shape loose very lightly, and then what I can do is I can almost zigzag up the top of the leaf. So I'm going out, pulling back a little bit, going out, pulling back a bit, going up, pulling back a bit and going up. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going up, coming back in a little bit. So it's almost like a letter, like a number 7, almost. But the set or number 1 with the top angled quite a long way down, down and up. And there we've got a nice serrated edged leaf. Oh, excuse me. It's my door. I'll be back in a moment. Honest. Bear with. Ooh. Sorry about that. Important delivery. It's a book I ordered. I'll show you in a moment. I haven't opened it yet, but I know what it is. So that, but what about ones that have got like an oak leaf? So let's start with the central bit again. The top of an oak leaf is more rounded. In fact, let's make a rounded leaf shape there as well. And then I'll do that kind of shape again here. But instead of having it very oval, let's have it going back a bit shorter there, at the bottom. And then I'm going to go up and I'm going to make little dips down while still following that kind of shape there. And I've now got an acorn, not an acorn, an oak leaf. Hello, Andrew. Lovely to see you. It's nice to have you here. So we've got that going on. So that's nice. So leaves on their own can be great fun, and just practicing drawing them, filling a page with them, adding colour or pattern to them is something wonderful to do. So, and again, you have something then that's in your sketchbook becomes a reference for later things, or think, well, I like that pumpkin. Now, what can I do with that? How could I add pattern to it? How could I add colour to it? Can I draw it bigger? Will it fit into this drawing? Can I use it as a basis for something to draw from? And you can just do it just for pure relaxation for no other reason. I often think of sketchbooks as a total resource for patterns, for motifs, for ideas, for exploring with media, working out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, keeping everything that you do with notes. If you're not fussed on it, if you are fussed on it, if it's something you don't think is a finished work, it's just something you've done to experiment, make notes on it. I do all the time because that shows you're learning, you're reflecting on your work, and go back to it and see whether you still agree with it a week later, 2 weeks, a month, a year, and just go, well, actually, I can see the value of that what I did there now. I'm going to work with that and see if I can improve it or use it in that kind of way. And the same with things like this. I draw pumpkins every year and leaves all the time. And it's always practice, it's all muscle memory, it's all hand-eye coordination. Sometimes it's just because I've got no idea what I want to do. Sometimes because I'm tired or overwhelmed and I won't cope with creating a work of art, say, in any kind of way. But it's something I can do just for the sheer pleasure. So sketchbooks are really important in that respect. They're a place where I've said this before, where you can make mistakes. They're a journal of your art journey. They record what has grabbed your interest, how you have worked out what you would like to do with it. They show your progress in developing your skills and your style and becoming comfortable with that. Because the worst thing you can do is to compare your work to somebody else's. Because if you think they're much better than you, you'll always be hard on yourself. phrase I like is, "I'll do me and you do you." Your muscles will move in a different way to me. What movements your hands make that bring joy and pleasure. Because I do enjoy the different shapes that I draw. You might see there's very many shapes that appear in my work that appear all the time because they are motions that I enjoy making with my pen. They just feel natural and smooth and just me. So I'm inking these in because you may get a better idea then of how they progress and form. There we go. Let's get this lovely oval one. There's one more leaf at least I want to do here. Actually, there's a couple more. This is lovely and oval. And then the oak leaf. As I draw them, I may decide to subtly alter what I've done. Oak leaves don't often mirror each other on the side, so I'm not trying to make them perfectly symmetrical. There's no point. Okay, one leaf that I really love, and I am going to draw a stem in here for it, but it's a bit of a different leaf because it will have a curve on the top, and I'm going to curve, make it about a semicircle, and then underneath, I'm going to have another curve bringing it back. But I know that along the way, I want a couple of little, almost like little tears in it. It's a ginkgo leaf. I don't know why I put tears in it, but I do. So I'm going to start from the bottom of the stem, and I'm just going to draw the sides in. Actually, I've decided I might just do one little break in it right at the center of it, like so. And there's my ginkgo leaf. I love ginkgo leaves. What others have we got? Right, I'm going to put a very short stem in here, and then I'm going to do a very rounded shape, like so, with just that little stem at the bottom. I had to go back and draw this one in, this side in again, because I realised I'd drawn it too high up. I now have something that looks like that, which could be something like a water lily. So I'm just going to draw the sides in like that, which will work. An ivy leaf has the stem and then a V shape close to the bottom. And what we're going to do here is from the top of that first one is to draw a curve down almost to the stem, then into the center between this line and this line, then up that side, another curve there. So a curve here, curve there, and a curve down. And to do something that is vaguely like a maple leaf or a sycamore leaf, we again have these lines like that. I think for an ivy leaf, these might be better if they were flatter, the veins there. I did them quite sharp. Two that are fairly long, not as long as the central one, and then two shorter ones. And again, it's the same kind of idea. That going a bit wrong, but it doesn't matter too much, like so. And we've got those. So I'll do another ivy leaf elsewhere because leaves are fun. So to show the difference in the angle of the V shape that we start with. And because these are quite short, I'm going to lengthen these shapes here, keeping the points sort of in line with those initial lines. I'm just fattening the leaf up a little bit. And then let's have a look. I'm going to put another leaf here, and because I can draw things, what shape did I want to do? Oh yeah, sometimes you get leaves that have almost quite sharp leaves on like this, and you can change where that is along the leaf and vary it and see what happens. Let's try this ivy leaf again. So instead of having the V shape quite sharp, let's put it at the bottom and have it quite wide. And I'm also going to put a little semicircle there, or circle there. Don't know if you can see it. I'll draw it darker. I could have done that with the others, like this. So the center line, the two V's, the V shape, and then a semicircle there, because that's going to be where we join our lobes of the leaf back. So I'm just going to get my central bit at the bottom there. Then I'm going to go from this point, I'm going to go all the way down, up there, come back there. Again, I didn't make these lobes as low as I could have. Oops, that's got a funny shape now. I'm going to work with it. There's nothing I can do about it because I've inked it in. And then here we're going to go way out and give that a nice shape. And then I'm just going to add these lines in on this one. So we've got that there, which looks a bit more realistic. Same thing for these, I think, is that if I take the maple leaf and give myself longer sections perhaps, and again, let's just put that circle in, or the lines in, about centrally up them, put the centre in where the parts are going to join. I'll just put the base of the leaf stem in. I'm going to go all the way down and back, down and back, 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 and there. And that is much more like a sycamore or a maple leaf. I haven't put the serrations on the edge of the leaves because, well, I could, but I quite like the simple shape today. It's about learning those shapes. I've done the serrations here. I've done the wobbly lobes there. And then perhaps just one more leaf. Just fill this gap in. I'm just simply going to make it very circular. There are many other shapes of leaves. Honestly, there are. In fact, I might sneak one in here because I've got a little bit of space there. And this one is where it looks like a spearhead. It's really a very narrow, pointy heart shape, but it's that kind of shape going on. And of course, we can get tiny, tiny little leaves as well that are heart-shaped or little ovals or even littler ovals. And of course, these you'll find on stems where the leaves are repeated. So let's just do some with just some circles. No stems at the bottom of these as if they are directly attached to the stem of the plant. This reminds me a little bit of Cotoneaster, which is a shrub, and its leaves are oval. kind of. They're almost like little shallow dishes, if I remember rightly, from the back anyway. They sort of bend. That just is just lovely, just as a very simple frond. I've made all of my little leaves here about the same size. And of course, you can make them get bigger bit by bit as you go down. Let me do that with a different shape, perhaps, of leaf. So we'll have a small traditional leaf at the top. I'm going to pop short little stems there, and I'm going to add leaves here. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. I can extend the stems then. A little bit bigger again. Don't worry about it being a perfect progression. Nature is perfectly imperfect. The leaves will do as they will. This makes it feel more like a branch. And yet leaves do grow on branches opposite one another, like this. But they can also grow. Oh, thank you, Christine. I'm glad you like them. But they can also grow alternate as well. So let's do one that has alternate leaves. The leaves alternate down the stem. So this time I'm going to put a heart-shaped leaves on. There. These are very useful if you've got leaves that have got a broad bottom to them. These look almost like ivy leaves the way I'm drawing them. Doing them very quickly, I'm not sketching it out to begin with. I now know what the shape of these leaves are, how I can draw them. So I'm just going to go with it. And perhaps one more here. Oh, that one's going to go touch that one or go behind it, and that's fine as well. And of course, if I wanted to, I can start to add berries here where I've got gaps for them, sometimes with a stem on, sometimes just nestling, perhaps next to things. And that just adds a bit of interest there as well, because it's autumn time. So, trying to think. Something like ash tree leaves would have little leaves like this. They do alternate. If I remember rightly, I think they're either in night group pairs, 9 or 11 pairs, or is it 7 and 9 pairs? Can't remember, but they do get bigger as you get towards the bottom. I'm drawing mine at an angle. I'm not counting how many pairs I've got because ultimately it really isn't that important. It also looks like a fern. There we go. So we've got ferns. And this any leaf shape you've made here could end up on a branch because you find other things on a branch as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the bottom bit blank. Now I'm going to take my eraser and I'm just going to erase all my pencil lines because yes. Now you don't have to do this because if you want to leave your pencil lines there as a reminder how to draw these, to look back on, then leave them. It's not crucial to do this. I've pressed a bit harder my pencil lines in places so that you can see what I'm doing, which is going to make it harder to erase the lines. So if you want to erase the lines, try to make the pencil lines as faint as you can or as light as you can, as light a pressure as you can, so that they erase a lot easier. There we go. So I've got the page full of lovely leaves. What I am going to do is I am going to split them into sections like these can be done in the sections, as can this one. Here, there would really be a kind of it wouldn't be towards the bottom, there would be a place where these all come together. So I'm just getting these all going like so. That's okay. This one, lily pads have a very unusual vein pattern. They branch out a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by drawing a wobbly line, and then branching it at the end, another wobbly line branching it at the end, wobbly line with a branch, and then I can start to branch these and perhaps have others that will kind of branch. If they meet, they meet. Don't worry about it. It's kind of a very stylized way of drawing them. We're not drawing botanically accurate leaves, we're just giving that feeling. And I think I really should have started in the center somewhere for this because I think that stem is right in the middle-ish. I could be wrong. I think it depends what lily pad we're talking about, but that works nicely. My ginkgo leaf is fine as it is. They do have lines in them, but I might put that on afterwards. Those are okay, those are okay, those are okay. Everything else is fine and dandy, and I've still got tons of pencil lines on here. Let's just move some, is it? Oh, that'll be fine. Okie doke, so I'm going to just put some stuff out the way and let's have a look. Oh, before I get engrossed in watercolor, let me open. Ow, just got my foot. Just have a look here. There we go. Fabulous. I ordered a book. It's most books I will buy, as in books, will be ones that are for arts. And we've got a company in the UK called Postscript Books, I've discovered, who have books for a fraction of their full price. And there's nothing wrong with them. This one has come in its original wrapping. And this one is called Florilegium, Joseph Banks. And I'll zoom out, in and out again. And it is Botanical Treasures from Cook's First Voyage. If you know me, you know how much I love Botanica. So these are all to do mainly with Australia. And they've got it has the most beautiful plant illustrations in. And you might not be able to see, but I will do my best to zoom in so you can see better. Tons and tons of cross hatching on them to bring out the light and dark. Very perfect in area. And I'm thinking, okay, then. Now I've seen somebody doing that. I won't feel so bad about me ending up doing it that kind of way. These beautiful flowers. A wonderful sauce. I think this cost me £23 instead of about 60. Well worth it. Lovely seeds and flowers. That lovely drawing at the back showing a single leaf. Just in line. So a beautiful book to look at. I'm not saying you have to go out and buy it, but it adds to my collection of books of flora, flowers, plants. I've got one that shows flowers of South Africa. It's true. I do. Beautiful, beautiful illustrations. So these were done. This was done on the Australia and the Endeavour River, the 17th of June to the 4th of August, 1770. So these illustrations are over 250 years old, or about 250 years old, which is amazing. And they're as beautiful today as they were then. You can see. Just gorgeous. That one. Oh, that's a form of columbine. Morning Glory. Beautiful yellow trumpet-shaped flowers. It's got to be. I'm not going to go back and find it because I'll be here all day. So that's my new book, Florilegium. There we go, with some commentary and history and so on, but lots of pretty pictures. I like pretty pictures and lots of inspiration for shapes and forms and the way things are put together. So I've got this. I have got a water brush because I like water brushes, and I've got this little palette that is, yes, it's got a mess on it, which is perfect for me because I don't really use that much in the way of watercolor when I paint. These are colored in tube paints that I've squeezed into here. so that I can they dry and you use them just like you would ordinary watercolors. Um, I think I know what the colors are, but I'm not too sure. So I'm just picking up some color and I'm popping it down here. That's a lovely, oh, it's gone a dark brown because I've mixed it with another color, but there's some more of that yellowy color coming through. I'm a fuss pot with watercolor. I never, ever mix my colors on my paints. I like to keep my paints completely clean. I know other people will happily put the color on there, but I don't. And with watercolors, even from the tubes, they always reactivate with water. So I've got a kind of orange I think I'm happy with here. So I'm just going to put a wash of color on here. Now, if I wanted to be fancy, I could have put some blue or some other color, gray or whatever, down as the shadow in the shadows, but I'm not. I just want to get a nice coat of color on and let it dry. Let it dry properly before I add any more color. And I've noticed that if I add more color while it's wet, everything just shifts and it ends up a bit of a mess, but I don't mind that. What I am going to do though is I am going to add some darker color at the bottom and see if it will spread in the dampness. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I can make it, it's not, but I can make it mix in just to give some shadow, some extra shadow. So this pumpkin is more of a browny color than a true, bright orange, but I'm fine with that as well. It's just playing with watercolor and seeing what happens. It may be that by adding color to these little bits, I can actually improve on that. I have put color over on the, oops, it's gone onto the stem, but I'm not worried about that because the green I will use will be different. So let me just get some more, get some this yellow in there, a bit more of an acid yellow. I'll get a brighter color there. So I much prefer a water brush to brush and jar for lots of reasons. It's my phone telling me a message has just pinged in. Oh, and another. There we go. So that's lovely. I've got some red. I've got a lovely pinky red here, so I'm going to add some of that to this and really get a nice reddy, bit too reddy. Oh, and I've gone and put some of that reddy colour on my yellow. It'll be fine. See if we can just get a slightly different orange in here. See that colour shift, so I can get a darker colour on this where I want some shadows on this one. Because it's quite a warm day here. This is actually drying quite quickly. That's a much happier looking pumpkin than the other one. Let's have a look. Right, I've got greeny blue there, but I really want a yellowy colour. So let me just get some of this yellow. Yeah, it's a bit, yeah, into that orangey colour. Ooh, that's a grim green. You can't see this, but I've got my little palette here that I'm just painting on. And I thought it'd been quite fun to have a different coloured pumpkin. This one's kind of olivey green. Just like that. Just for fun, because they're gourds, aren't they, pumpkins? And I think I'd like that kind of colour, perhaps with a bit of an orange in for the leaves here. Have it really like it's past its best. And this one I'm going to do quite brown, as if they have died. It's a greeny brown. It's not an accurate colour, but does that matter for this? It's sketchbook work. I'm doing this more to give this all a kind of a feeling of autumn and the end of growth, things ripening rather than things being alive, you know? Still alive, but you know what I mean. I've tried pumpkin once. And it's one of those foods that as soon as it hit my tongue, I felt sick. And I was really eager to try it, but it just was not going to work for me at all. Sorry to those who love it, but it's a food that is not for me. So this one I am going to put some of that yellowy green on there. I'll take a little bit of brown and add the brown here. So, and perhaps a little bit of brown and green mixed together just to do the stem. Oh, that's a really good brown. In this little palette, I've added colours that will mix well together, plus a couple of ones that I really like. And so I'm going to get some unexpected kinds of colours going on, as I haven't really explored what they're like in terms of mixing. It's something I do need to do, but this week wasn't the week for it. I think I might add a bit more of this lovely pinky red here to this to get a really strong kind of orangey colour here, reddish orange. Ooh, that's a proper pumpkin orange, isn't it? Pick more of the colour up because I don't want it to fade too much as I move sideways in a way. I do want it to fade, but not as much as it wants to. Got a lot of water flooding out of this brush, which might be actually the best way to do this. I'm no expert at watercolours, by the way. I like them for their immediacy of colour. I actually like this one because I've got that darkness that's there and it's just spreading out, and that might be perhaps I just haven't used enough water here. And I've got some of the colour spilling outside the lines. Again, I'm not worried. There, we'll do that. So that's quite fun. Okie dokes. What about some of these? We've got that there. Got this here. That. Ooh, that'll be nice. Bit of blue there. Let's add some. Oh, that's a kind of brownish colour. Well done, Angela. You mixed baby poop. But on the other side, let's mix a warmer or redder colour of it. And while all of this is nicely wet, I'm going to pick up some of this yellow, pop it up there to keep it pure and pristine. I'm just going to dot some in. So we get yellow dot, or yellow blending into that, creating interesting textures and patterns. The only way to work out how watercolor works for you is, well, by following tutorials is one way, but by experimenting for yourself as well, because it can be a bit tricksy. And I find that I follow what other people do and it just doesn't work for me. I'm not sure this is working for me, but I'm not going to give it up either. I would like some yellow in this. So I know I've got my yellow up here and with some orange. So I'm going to put some yellow at the tip, like so. And then here I've got this lovely red, and I know which red that is, and I've got some purple here, and I'm going to just add that at the base and just help it to blend upwards a little bit into the wet areas and just let it do its stuff. There we go. You can see the difference between this and the pumpkins. I didn't really have thought of doing this for the pumpkins. It's taken me a while to get into this. So next leaf, I'm going to go over the stem as well. Why not? I should do the stems as well, shouldn't I? It's okay. Again, it's that reddy brown colour here. Okay. Just down there. This one, I think I'm going to be crazy and add some green at the tip, but I'm going to push that colour backwards and add some more of that green. Perhaps I should put it at the bottom, but it will make an interesting colour there and perhaps a little bit more of that yellow as well. Oops. So I move everything around here, trying to get some of that lemony yellow up. That'd be interesting. And while I've got all that colour on my brush, I might as well use it rather than waste it. I'm mostly using colour that's on my palette. The only colour I've picked up from the palette, from the box, is that bright yellow. So I've got that bright yellow there. I'm going to put some of this olivey green at its base and just let it do what it will, like so. And perhaps some of the perhaps a bit of an orangey brown at the tip, just to suggest we're starting to get this beginning to fade to its autumn colours. And if I can find that lovely red I've got, a hint of that red as well, just letting it fade into it as it will. Perhaps just a little bit more of that yellow. Uh, Works nicely. Go. Okay, this one, I think we're going to have quite a greeny blue leaf here, something a bit, oops, different, a bit more water needed to keep the colour moving. And then I'm going to do this with this brown at the base. I'm going to put a bit of that greeny colour in as well, right the way down here. Turn it that little bit greener, then a little bit more orangey or reddish. And then I'm going to, again, get some of that lovely yellow. I'm going to mix it with that colour just to tone that yellow down because it's very acid, but it's also very bright. So there's a nice kind of leaf here. I'm just adding a bit more of the brown there. Reminds me very much of autumn leaves, autumn oak leaves. Perhaps the red is going over the top a bit, but I don't care. Here we are. So I could go on and do all of these in a very similar way. But what I'm going to do, I'll just do my ginkgo leaf because I love ginkgo leaves. And they go the most beautiful, warm, golden yellow in autumn. There's a ginkgo tree in a park near in Neath, Castell Nedd yn Gymraeg, Castell Nedd, which is to the west of me and southwest. And it has a ginkgo tree there. It's the only ginkgo tree I've ever come across in nature. And it just is just amazing. And I didn't realize it was there until one autumn when I saw all these golden leaves on the ground. And I've always loved the shapes of ginkgo leaves. And I just, it was lovely. That's not as warm a yellow as I want, so because they are a bit warmer and a bit greeny as well at the same time. So I'm just adding a little hint of orange there. That's more golden. There we go. I'm going to finish the leaves there for now because play with colours. You can make them any colour you like. I've gone pretty much autumnal colours, but I know my pumpkins are mostly dry. I'm going to have a look in here. Have I got an 005, 02? No, I haven't popped an 005 in here. So I'm going to stick with my 01 pen. Oh, and I didn't add any colour to the top of that pumpkin. It's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pen just to add some shading where I want it. I've been inspired by Florilegium with cross hatching. Now, because I've made this paper wet, my pen is going to appear a lot thicker than it would have before, but that's okay. So on this side, I'm going to use pen. So I've just had a thought. I do that from time to time. And I'm going to just darken those lines there where they'd be in shadow. I'll do that on all of them because that helps with that feeling of volume as well. Always to the left and bottom with me. However you wish to do them, just be consistent. So that's already brought that perhaps a little bit alive. But what I'm going to do on the other side is I'm going to use my pencil to do the cross hatching instead of a pen. And I'm going to press fairly hard, but I just want to bring some cross hatching out there to bring that shadow in. I'm going back over it, but I'm going diagonally across the lines that I put in, which were fairly straight, to be honest. Do the same here. I'm just putting them in diagonally now. This is a 0.3mm mechanical pencil. It's a Pentel Graph Gear, if you want to know. It's one of the cheaper versions because it has a plastic barrel, but I love the bright orange. And I do like the 0.3 size pencil for drawing with. And there we are. So we've got the black, which is very stark, and I can see the pencil more than most probably you can. It's definitely there. It definitely makes a difference. And I think I prefer this to using pencil shading. Don't think I've got, oh, I have got one of those. I have one of those, and I have one of them. I do have one of them. This one's very dark though. I'll use it. And this one, let's have a look at what graphite shading would look like. So I'm just doing this and that. There. I would have preferred, I think, to have graphite shading. Don't know where I've put my eraser. Over there. And everything behind me. It's gone a bit far down, but eraser. Just erase it. It won't remove the watercolour. In fact, this watercolour seems to have stuck really well to the paper. I'm just going to add the graphite base and bottom. I could have done with a much smaller tortillon, less mucky one. It's fine. And then I'll just use what I've got here just to put some shading around this. Just to add that there, that little bit of shadow. And again, that started to bring that to life. So we've got alternatives. We've got different things we can do. The other thing we can do would be to add patterns and things to them. I'm going to go away from my pumpkin. Well, I don't know. Because I'm going to add an extra aura inside these sections. So here I'm going to go like that. And here I'm going to go over these lines so they become darker. Trying to trace them pretty much in the same way. Like so. And then in these areas, I can put patterns. So here I'm going to put little arches in, rounded arches, like so. And in between them at the top, I'm just going to add some black. Part of me is thinking I've done these the wrong way around. I should have had them going this way. I'll show you what I mean on this side. Because this would be the area that's in shadow. And that means I'm going to have the most ink in that section, like so. So that actually makes more sense to me. And rather than put another little semicircle at the bottom and colour it in black, I'm going to put a dot towards the top here just to increase the amount of ink where the shadow would be, but the colour is showing through. Now, if I do the same thing here, if I was to put that semicircle of black at the base, just a little bit of the green showing, then that adds that darkness there and helps to send this more into shadow. And perhaps there's more inkiness in these bits here than the areas that I've just coloured in. Yeah, I don't know, which one do you prefer? Tell me. So using pattern to bring out shadow is a good thing. Thickening lines, making lines thicker, wider. Adding line weight is another way, which I've already done, but I'm increasing that here by making the places where these connect in the darkest areas, sort of like triangular shaped, rather than just a plain kind of, junction. Um, Making them, you know, soldering the lines together. If I do that here as well, under, 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 inside. And some shading there, so going to the bottom and the left of all of these lines helps to bring that out. Same with my leaves, like so. So that one is just very simply done with line weights. Yeah. So let's have a look. For these, I am going to add ink around the outside of the leaves. If it's not perfect, if it's not perfectly the same thickness of line, do not panic, do not worry. All will be fine and well. And I'm just going to add some lines, a lot very close together on one side to suggest shading, shadow, being in the shadow. And then on the other side, not so many, suggesting that it's catching light and is much lighter. I love this one so much. I'm not sure what I want to do with that. Um, do I have? I do have. I have a white Posca pen here. Just going to give that a couple of pumps. So I'm going to put some white dots on here. I haven't got a gold pen to hand, otherwise I'd have used a metallic gold or glitter gold because I think that would be quite nice. So I'm just putting some white dots on there. I haven't got any other colours of Posca paint pens, but I do have some the Sakura Moonlight, so they would have worked actually. I'm going to give that a chance to dry and I'll come back to it. This one, I'm going to do a similar kind of thing to the pumpkin, where I'm drawing these arches in. I'm just filling those little bits in there. On that side. And perhaps on this side, I'll just put little semicircles on the other side of the, those sections, just to bring something out there. This one, let's use the Zentangle Mooka, but I'm going to put a spiral in there and bring it back. I'll do that on one side. And I can fill these sections with tiny little circles or circular shapes, just to bring some darkness in around these little spirally, frondy things, patterns. That'd be quite nice. Something quite different. And I'm going to just darken this up. And perhaps I'll make that stem black and white, well, black and green striped. How about that? Something a bit different. There we go. I'll leave the other side. I think mainly as it is, though I could just do some horizontal lines that have got, parallel lines that have got little breaks in them with dots in between, as if there's light shining off this side. So it adds some pattern and texture, but it also brings highlights out. And it's much lighter than the other side for comparison. And so we can just keep on going. It's endless possibilities. I've just shown you a few. Oh, thank you, Christine. That's really nice of you to say so. But I am going to leave you now. My stomach's getting a bit icky again. And I hope that you follow through and carry on with all your leaves and complete the page. I know this is going to go into this, although I've torn this out, I know I can put this back over the wire binding and it's going to go back in the sketchbook and I'll finish it in the same way I will others, bit at a time as I feel like it. I can get too overwhelmed to do things. But I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's given you some ideas. I hope it's given you a little project to work on bit by bit over the coming days and to add to on your own. So until then, enjoy autumn, and I look forward to seeing you the next time I'm able to join you, which I don't know when it's going to be, but hopefully soon. So until then, take care. Bye-bye. Bye.